Every year when spring comes around, there's lots of talk about birth and rebirth. So I wanted to talk today about two births that we all must have. There's the birth of our bodies, and then there's what we might call the birth of our soul. Now, by soul here, I'm referring not to the theological idea of some immortal spirit that has taken up housing in our bodies. Here, when I'm talking about the soul, I mean that part of ourselves that includes character and courage and compassion. These are not things that we're born with. These are things that we must give birth to. In the novel that I just read from Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates, Tom Robbins has a character named Switters who is a subversive CIA agent. And in the scene that I'm about to share, he's conversing with a nun, and he tells her, "I'm on the run from the killer bees." "Pardon?" she says. "You know, B for belief, B for belonging. The bees that lead to most of the killing in the world." He goes on to explain what he means. "If you don't belong among us, then you're our inferior or our enemy or both. And you can't belong among us unless you believe what we believe. Maybe not even then, but it certainly helps. Our religion, our party, our tribe, our town, our school, our race, our nation, believe, belong, behave, or be damned." He elaborates, saying, as long as we're driven to belong and believe, we will never be at peace and we will never be free. Once he detects that the nun is not convinced about the killer bees, he says, "Can't you hear them buzzing? Listen to the swarm that belief and belonging have begot. Boundaries, borderlines, blood bonds, blood brothers, blood lust, blood bath, bloody, bloody, bang, bang, boom, boom, blast, bludgeon, batter, blow up, bomb, butcher, break, blindside, bushwhack, behead, blackball, betray, bullets, blades, booby traps, bazookas, bayonets, brute force, barbarism, Babylon, Babel, Beelzebub, Beetlejuice, and bureaucracy." He does admit that there are some good things that begin with B, like beer, biscuits, the Beatles, and Broadway. Now, this passage got me thinking about words that start with B, and I thought of two more positive ones that seem to fit for this season and for what I wanted to say today: birth and breath. I never appreciated breath more than when my wife was giving birth. During the delivery of each of our children, the midwife kept telling her, "Breathe, breathe." And without a doubt, it was her breath that got her through the hardest parts. And when each of our children slid into the world, everyone stared at the newborn baby in that way that people do when they've just experienced a miracle. And suddenly the attention shifts from the mother to the baby, and everyone is saying, "Breathe, breathe." And as soon as the baby does, she comes alive. It's been said that ministers are like midwives to the soul. Like a midwife, we coach, cheer, inspire, educate, provide assurance, and sometimes offer technical help. We might say that in order to have a healthy soul, we have to give birth to such things as forgiveness, empathy, generosity, courage, fortitude, and hope. Now, sometimes birthing these babies can involve very painful and scary deliveries. So I've come to realize that as a minister, I need to do more to encourage people to breathe. When there's a complicated or difficult delivery of a baby, it usually involves a cord being wrapped around the baby's neck or a breech position. Things that complicate the birth of a healthy soul include cynicism and egotism and literalism and ignorance and shame and fear. So a midwife of the soul might find one with a cynical attitude wrapped around its neck, strangling a person's life with constant complaining and pessimism. Or the problem might be the ego, in which case the head is too big for the soul to fit through the birth canal. These complicating factors inevitably lead to slow and painful deliveries, in which case one would be advised to breathe. In one of the plethora of prenatal books that my wife and I read before our children were born, I remember there was an exercise in which you hold a piece of ice in your hand and see how long you can do it, and then you try it again, but this time doing some concentrated breathing, and it's remarkable how our breath can help us endure and rise above the pain. Studies by holistic healers in Harvard University have demonstrated the power of breath to decrease blood pressure, to increase circulation, to relieve stress, to control pain, to regulate body temperature, and to improve performance and concentration both in studies as well as athletics. If we could invent a pill that could do all of this, we'd make a fortune. But the reality is that we all have what we need right at the tip of our nose. But few of us know how to harness the power of our breath. It's almost as if its simplicity belies its effectiveness. Stopping to breathe can help us feel more centered in the midst of our busy lives. It's interesting that when we're feeling frightened and anxious, we constrict our breathing, start breathing short and fast breaths. And in that situation, as we all know, a few slow and deep breaths can change our entire physiology and what's going on in our heads, and can change the moment for everybody around us. Something as simple as taking a few breaths after the person we're talking to finishes their sentence, before we jump in with what we want to say, can help a person feel heard and can actually deepen our relationships with other people. One of the simplest ways available to rise above the distractions and the demands of our lives is to stop and breathe. And when we do, we can be reminded of our deepest aspirations. Now, the word aspire is interesting. It comes from the Latin word spiritus, which means spirit or breath. Aspire means literally to breathe upon, or in that sense, it refers to seeking to reach or attain something. It also means to soar. Taking time to remember our aspirations involves connecting to our soul's longing, to our deepest longings, and it's through such concentration that we learn to soar, or our lives are able to take off. The word inspire comes from the same root, and it means breathe into, and it refers to awakening and enlivening our passions and our aspirations. Many of us come to All Souls on any given Sunday to be reminded of our aspirations and to find inspiration. But more importantly, we come to conspire. Conspire literally means to breathe together. And it refers to people joining in common endeavor and acting in harmony towards a common goal. So here we conspire together to create a community that will nurture the birth of a better society, and also to nurture the birth of our own soul's beauty. Because once the regular midwife's work is done, and a new life is born, then we begin the work of birthing the soul, the part of a person that is filled with depth and courage and generosity. And it takes a village of parents and mentors and ministers and teachers and much more to see that a child grows in wisdom and confidence and compassion and connection and kindness and in love. It helps to have a community like All Souls because the secular culture around us offers a lot of mixed messages that are not always conducive to the birth of a healthy soul or a healthy life. And much of the rigid religious culture that we have around us is also not conducive to the birth of a healthy soul or a healthy, balanced life. There's too much anti-intellectualism in much of religion, too much feelings of superiority and superstition. This week, Jews celebrate Passover. It's a wonderful holiday in so many ways, but it also celebrates a story in which God kills all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians in order to show God's preference for the Jews. Christians celebrate Easter, and most of them do this with the idea that the resurrection was not just a resurrection, but a resuscitation, a literal coming back of the body to walk the earth again. In much of Christianity, if you do not believe in this literal resurrection, you are outside the circle of belonging, both now and eternally. And so I want to go back to what Switters, the character mentioned earlier, said about belief and belonging being killer bees. Because belonging itself is not a killer, but belonging and belief together can be. So what is it about belief that makes it so dangerous? Why is it that some beliefs lead to destruction and bondage, and others to creativity and liberation? It's because some beliefs are ideological, and those who adhere to them allow those beliefs to completely dominate their lives, and they try to use them to dominate other people's lives. Religion is too often about spending one's life enforcing a religious belief system rather than being a lifelong process of discovery and transformation. But belonging to a community of discovery and service is life-giving. Religion ought to be an adventure that nurtures and changes us and helps us to discover ourselves and to discover our world. We live in a complicated, disordered, and demanding times. And therefore, to live passionate, full, and meaningful lives, we need to quiet ourselves long enough to listen to those things that call us to our highest selves. We need to find ways to rise above our daily dealings so that we can become receptive to the powerful and fleeting mystery which is our life, so that we don't forget who we really are and who we can and must become. One of the great tools we have to quiet ourselves is our breath. Like flowing water which shapes limestone canyons into works of immense beauty, our breath can shape us. Stopping to breathe can help us to find our center, can release us from the prison of ego, can open us to new perspectives, to compassion and awareness of what we truly care about. But not only that, it can bring down our blood pressure. It can extend our life. It can improve our relationships. It can help us deal with pain. It can improve our memory. And it can increase our wisdom. It's even said that it can enhance our sex life. I wish I could bottle it. I'd make a fortune. But instead, it's free for the taking. With a little attention, we can turn something that is free and abundant into one of the most valuable substances available. So as you aspire and inspire and conspire, and before you expire, remember to breathe. Because in every huff, puff, sniffle, and snort, in every gasp, sigh, laugh, and retort, there's something amazing that we can't even see, the spirit that animates you and me. Call it the breath, air, oxygen, or wind. Whatever its name, it's hard to comprehend. But there's something profound in every wheeze, pant, and whiff. Let us thank life for this extraordinary gift. This may be just another Sunday, but with a little breath, we can give birth to beautiful things. Have a wonderful day.